My beloved child, there is a reason you were guided to this message today. Out of all the voices you could have listened to, out of all the videos you could have watched, something led you here. And before you do anything else, don't skip. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you. What you are about to hear is not ordinary. A conversation happened. A heartfelt conversation. And the subject of that conversation was you. At first, nobody expected it to matter. Nobody expected a few sincere words spoken in a quiet moment to create a ripple so powerful that it would begin changing the way someone sees you. Yet that is exactly what happened. Stay with me. Because as this story unfolds, you may recognize pieces of your own journey hidden inside it. For a long time, you may have felt unseen. You may have wondered whether people truly understood your heart. You may have smiled while carrying burdens nobody knew about. You may have given kindness without receiving appreciation. You may have remained strong when nobody realized how much strength it took just to keep moving forward. And because of that, there were moments when you questioned whether your efforts mattered at all. But something changed. Not because you forced it. Not because you demanded attention. Not because you tried to prove your worth. Something changed because the truth about you finally reached the right ears. Don't skip. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you. The conversation began unexpectedly. Someone mentioned your name. Not in a dramatic way. Not in a loud way. Just naturally. And for a moment, everything paused. Then another person began talking about you. At first, the words were simple. They spoke about your character. They spoke about your consistency. They spoke about the way you continue showing up even when life becomes difficult. They spoke about the kindness you display when nobody is watching. And as the conversation continued, something remarkable happened. The listener became silent. Not because they were bored. Not because they disagreed. But because they were beginning to realize something they had never fully understood before. They were seeing a different version of you. A version built from truth. A version built from sincerity. A version built from everything that had gone unnoticed for far too long. The more they listened, the more their perspective shifted. Piece by piece. Word by word. Moment by moment. Have you ever watched the sunrise after a long night? The darkness doesn't disappear instantly. Instead, the light slowly takes over. That is exactly what happened during this conversation. A new understanding began to rise. And once it started, it could not be stopped. The listener began remembering things. Moments they had overlooked. Details they had ignored. Signs they had misunderstood. Suddenly, events from the past started connecting together. Situations that once seemed ordinary now carried deeper meaning. Actions that once appeared small suddenly looked significant. And your true value became impossible to ignore. Don't skip. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you. What makes this moment extraordinary is that you were not there to defend yourself. You were not there to explain yourself. You were not there to convince anyone. The truth spoke for you. Think about that. The truth spoke for you. Your actions spoke for you. Your character spoke for you. Your consistency spoke for you. And sometimes, my beloved child, that is more powerful than any speech you could ever give. Because genuine character leaves evidence everywhere it goes. People notice. Even when they remain silent. People remember. Even when they never mention it. People observe. Even when they pretend not to. The listener in this conversation began realizing that your story was very different from what they once assumed. And with every realization, their perspective changed. The walls around their understanding started coming down. The doubts started fading. The questions started finding answers. And something unexpected began growing inside them. Respect. Deep respect. Not the kind that appears for a moment and disappears. The kind that stays. The kind that transforms the way someone looks at another person forever. But wait. Because the conversation did not end there. In fact, what happened next surprised everyone. The person speaking about you shared something very personal. They described a moment when they saw your strength. A moment when they witnessed your resilience. A moment when they realized you carried far more courage than most people ever knew. The listener leaned in. Their attention became stronger. Their curiosity became deeper. And suddenly they wanted to know more. Who was this person they thought they understood? Who was this individual whose story seemed larger than they imagined? Who was this person whose quiet actions were creating such a powerful impression? The answer was simple. It was you. And that realization changed everything. Don't skip. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you. Because this conversation was not just about your past. It was pointing toward your future. A future where your value becomes clearer. A future where the right people begin seeing what was hidden. A future where understanding replaces misunderstanding. A future where appreciation replaces doubt. The shift has already started. The perspective has already begun changing. And what comes next may be even more meaningful than the conversation itself. Because once someone's perspective changes, their actions often change too. Their attention changes. Their priorities change. Their understanding changes. And sometimes, that single shift becomes the beginning of a completely new chapter. So hold on to this message. Remember it. Carry it with you. The story is only beginning. The conversation happened. The perspective changed. And what follows next is far greater than anyone expected. Don't skip. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you. Because the next part reveals what happened after that heartfelt conversation ended, and why the impact became impossible to ignore. A quiet shift was already taking place, even though nobody could see it yet. The conversation had ended, but the impact had only begun. Don't skip. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you. The person who listened to those heartfelt words about you walked away carrying something they did not have before, a completely new perspective. At first, they tried to continue with their day as usual. They focused on ordinary things. They followed their normal routine. They told themselves it was just a conversation. But something unusual kept happening. Your name kept returning to their thoughts. Again. And again. And again. Not because someone forced them to think about you. Not because they were searching for reasons. But because the words they had heard felt genuine. They felt real. And once truth enters someone's heart, it has a way of staying there. The listener began replaying the conversation. Every sentence. Every detail. Every story. Every observation. And with each replay, their understanding of you became stronger. They remembered moments they once overlooked. Moments when your kindness appeared. Moments when your patience stood out. Moments when your strength quietly revealed itself. The more they remembered, the more surprised they became. Because they realized something important. You had been showing people who you truly were all along. The signs were always there. One evening, while sitting alone with their thoughts, they found themselves asking a question. A simple question. Yet a powerful one. What if I was completely wrong about them? That question changed everything. Because when a person becomes willing to question their old assumptions, new understanding begins to grow. And that understanding started growing quickly. They began noticing things they never noticed before. The way you carry yourself. The way you remain calm. The way you continue moving forward. The way you treat others. The way you handle challenges without demanding recognition. Small details became impossible to ignore. And every detail pointed toward the same conclusion. You were far more remarkable than they realized. But what happened next was even more surprising. Someone else joined the conversation. Not the original conversation. A new one. And somehow, your name appeared again. This time, the listener did something unexpected. Instead of remaining silent, they spoke. They shared what they had learned. They repeated the heartfelt things they had heard about you. They described the qualities they had begun noticing. And suddenly, another person became interested. Another perspective started changing. Another understanding started growing. Think about that. One sincere conversation about you had already begun influencing more than one person. The ripple was spreading. Slowly. Quietly. Powerfully. Don't skip. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you. What makes this story extraordinary is that none of it happened because of a grand announcement. None of it happened because you demanded attention. None of it happened because you tried to convince anyone. It happened because authenticity carries power. Real character carries power. Real kindness carries power. And eventually, people begin talking about it. The listener continued reflecting on everything they had discovered. Days passed. Yet the impression remained. In fact, it grew stronger. Each new observation confirmed what they had heard. Each new realization reinforced the truth. Each new moment added another piece to the picture. And the picture becoming clear was beautiful. For the first time, they were seeing you through a lens of appreciation instead of assumption. Through understanding instead of uncertainty. Through truth instead of incomplete information. That shift may sound simple. But it changes everything. Because when perspective changes, opportunities appear. When perspective changes, conversations become different. When perspective changes, relationships become different. When perspective changes, the future becomes different. And that future was quietly approaching. Don't skip. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you. The most fascinating part is what happened inside the listener's heart. A feeling began growing. At first it was curiosity. Then admiration. Then respect. And eventually something even deeper. A genuine desire to understand more about you. Not the version created by assumptions. Not the version shaped by misunderstandings. The real you. The person behind the story. The person behind the strength. The person behind the kindness. The person behind the perseverance. That desire to understand became impossible to ignore. And once it appeared, it kept growing. The listener found themselves paying closer attention. Listening more carefully. Observing more thoughtfully. Looking beyond surface impressions. And every discovery made them realize they had underestimated you. Imagine hearing a song for years without truly listening to the lyrics. Then one day, you finally hear the meaning. Suddenly the song feels completely different. That is exactly what was happening. The listener was finally hearing the meaning. Finally understanding the story. Finally seeing the truth. And the truth was powerful. Don't skip. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you. Because the biggest surprise had not happened yet. One day, while reflecting on everything they had learned, the listener reached a conclusion they never expected to reach. They realized that the qualities they admired most in others had been present in you all along. The integrity. The resilience. The kindness. The sincerity. The determination. The consistency. Everything they respected was already there. They simply had not recognized it before. And when that realization arrived, it changed the way they looked at you forever. Not temporarily. Not for a moment. Forever. That is the power of a heartfelt conversation. A single conversation can open eyes. A single conversation can create understanding. A single conversation can transform perspective. And in your story, that transformation was already unfolding. Right now, as this message reaches you, remember something important. People often notice more than they say. They remember more than they admit. They appreciate more than they express. And sometimes, the most meaningful changes happen quietly before they become visible. The conversation about you started something. The perspective shifted. The understanding deepened. The respect grew. And the ripple continues moving outward. But what happens next is even more unexpected. Because in the next chapter, someone makes a realization so profound, so surprising, and so unforgettable that it becomes the turning point of the entire story. Don't skip. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you. There comes a moment in every story when everything begins to connect. This is that moment. Don't skip. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you. The heartfelt conversation about you had already changed someone's perspective. The respect had grown. The understanding had deepened. The assumptions had faded. But now something even more powerful was about to happen. A realization. Not an ordinary realization. Not a small observation. A realization so meaningful that it would become impossible to forget. One morning, the person who had been thinking about you found themselves reflecting on all the pieces they had gathered. The stories they heard. The qualities they noticed. The moments they remembered. The details they had overlooked in the past. And suddenly, something clicked. For the first time, they stopped looking at isolated moments. Instead, they looked at the entire picture. And the picture surprised them. What they saw was not someone ordinary. What they saw was someone who had remained consistent through changing seasons. Someone who had remained kind even when kindness was not returned. Someone who had continued moving forward without applause. Someone who had quietly become stronger through every challenge. And that realization struck them deeply. Because true character is rare. Very rare. And they were beginning to understand that your character had been speaking louder than words for a very long time. Don't skip. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you. As the day continued, another unexpected moment arrived. They heard someone mention your name again. This time, the conversation was brief. But something fascinating happened. Instead of listening passively, they immediately paid attention. Why? Because their perspective had already changed. The name that once blended into the background now carried significance. The person they once thought they understood now seemed far more remarkable. And every new mention of you reinforced what they had discovered. The listener began noticing a pattern. Every story about you pointed toward the same truth. Every observation highlighted similar qualities. Every memory revealed another layer of who you really are. The evidence was becoming impossible to ignore. And then came the realization that changed everything. They realized your greatest qualities were not the things you talked about. They were the things you lived. Think about that. The most impressive things about you were not announcements. They were actions. They were choices. They were habits. They were moments nobody applauded. Moments nobody celebrated. Moments nobody even noticed. Yet those moments were shaping the way people remembered you. The listener suddenly understood this. And once they understood it, they could never see you the same way again. Don't skip. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you. Imagine discovering that someone quietly inspired people without even trying. Imagine realizing that someone's presence brought encouragement without them knowing it. Imagine learning that someone's consistency created trust without them asking for recognition. That is what the listener began realizing about you. And the more they thought about it, the more amazed they became. Because genuine influence works differently. It does not demand attention. It earns attention. It does not force admiration. It inspires admiration. It does not chase respect. It creates respect naturally. And that is exactly what had happened. The heartfelt conversation about you had simply opened the door. What followed afterward revealed something much bigger. The truth. The truth that your impact was greater than you realized. The truth that your story was touching more lives than you knew. The truth that your presence mattered more than you imagined. And perhaps the most surprising truth of all. People were remembering things about you long after the moments had passed. Don't skip. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you. The listener started revisiting memories. Tiny memories. Simple memories. Moments that seemed insignificant at the time. But now they looked completely different. A kind word. A thoughtful action. A moment of patience. A moment of encouragement. A moment of integrity. Each memory carried weight. Each memory revealed character. Each memory strengthened their understanding. And then something unexpected happened. Instead of focusing on what you lacked, they began focusing on what you brought into the lives of others. That shift changed everything. Because people often underestimate the value they create. They overlook the encouragement they give. They overlook the kindness they share. They overlook the hope they inspire. But others remember. Others notice. Others carry those moments longer than anyone realizes. The listener was beginning to understand this. And with every realization, their appreciation grew. Not because someone told them to appreciate you, but because the evidence spoke for itself. The truth spoke for itself. Your story spoke for itself. Don't skip. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you. Now here is where the story becomes truly remarkable. The listener made a decision. A quiet decision. A personal decision. A decision that nobody else knew about. They decided they would never again rely on old assumptions. They decided they would look deeper. Listen closer. Understand better. And see people through a lens of truth rather than appearances. That decision alone transformed their perspective. But it also transformed the way they viewed you. Because now they were seeing the complete picture. And the complete picture revealed something extraordinary. You had been becoming the person people admire most without even realizing it. Not through perfection. Not through performance. But through authenticity. Through consistency. Through character. And those qualities leave a lasting impression. The kind of impression that remains long after conversations end. The kind of impression that remains long after moments pass. The kind of impression that changes how people remember you forever. Don't skip. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you. Because the story is approaching a turning point. The heartfelt conversation opened hearts. The perspective changed. The realizations grew stronger. The respect became deeper. But now something is beginning to move beneath the surface. Something nobody expected. Something that started with a simple conversation and is becoming something much bigger. The listener is no longer simply reflecting. They are preparing. Preparing for a moment. Preparing for a choice. Preparing for something that could create an entirely new chapter in this story. And when that moment arrives, everything they have learned about you will guide what happens next. The conversation changed their perspective. The perspective changed their understanding. The understanding changed their heart. And now their heart is leading them toward a decision they never expected to make. What that decision is, and why it becomes the most important moment in the entire story, will be revealed in the next part. Don't skip. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you.